call to order the Board of Supervisors meeting for Monday. I'm looking at a December calendar. So Monday, January 17th. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you missed the December meeting, according to my calendar, we'll be able to have it today. Ay, ay, ay. All right, let's start with the roll call. How about that, Amy?
Supervisor Mark Hain.
Here.
Chairman Dan Wolfel.
Here.
Supervisor Jeannie Vogel.
Here.
Supervisor Linda Waite.
Here.
And Supervisor Derek Daniel.
Here. All right, way to go. Meet and greet. We have a few people in the audience who would like to introduce themselves, please. Starting.
Sure. I'm Craig Nellis, 4216 Highway 57.
Carrie Nellis, same address.
Clay Nellis.
Betty?
Betty Parsons, Sevastopol resident.
Okay. Gentlemen, if you care to.
Derek Denise, Town of Sevastopol. Larry Chapman, Sevastopol.
All right, good enough. Public participation. Anyone have anything that they would like to speak about? Feel free to raise your hand. Nothing? All right, with that, we will move on. I have, the agenda was properly noticed.
The agenda was properly noticed.
We need a motion to adopt then.
I'll move to adopt the agenda for this evening, January 17th, 2022, as posted and noticed.
All right, motion by Linda, second by?
I'll second that.
Second by Jeannie. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carried. All right. Approval of minutes, Board of Supervisors meeting, December 20th. That's what I was looking at when I called the meeting. So, you've all had a chance to take a look at them. A motion would be in order.
I'll make a motion to approve the Board of Supervisors meeting minutes, December 20th.
Motion by Derek, second by?
Second.
Second by Mark. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. All right. Pending business. Well, there's been some good news. After I invested a few hours in reading 425 pages on how to spend your ARPA dollars, the Department of Treasury came out with what they call their final rule. I think this is actually the third or fourth final rule. At any rate, when they announced the final rule, they gave us some latitude that we frankly had not anticipated, which basically says that if you have less than $10 million coming to you, which our town has 246,000, you can spend it however you like. So a complete change from the direction that we had been given before. If you have over the $10 million, as obviously many cities and governmental units might, then they have to go back through the normal guidelines, which was broadband, sewer, water, those projects that we had discussed. The one avenue that under the old final rule that we were pursuing was what was called lost revenue. And in the calculations that the Treasury Department had given us and what Amy had taken us through, is we could have used approximately $70,000 of those ARPA funds any way we chose, but after the final rule came out, they waived that and basically said you can use it in your municipality for infrastructure, pretty much normal business things, which helps us out because we have some projects going on in the park, amongst other things, so we don't have to do that this evening, but at a future date, maybe we can discuss a little further, maybe where some of this money is going to go. We do have a chunk of it buttonholed for broadband, so nothing's changed there, but we will come back at a later date and discuss where we are with that and where we are with some of these other projects. Questions?
Yes, so we have this latitude, that's great. But are we still obligated to do the reporting? I believe you had to have your project reports by April of 2022
That's correct.
and still accomplish them by, or spend the money by
I believe
2024? So those
2024.
guidelines are still in place?
Correct.
Okay.
But they've reduced, I think they actually reduced the requirements for what we had to do from before.
Yes, it was going to be quarterly, and now I want to say it's once a year.
Yeah. So obviously 425 pages later, it was an improvement for us, so that's the good news. There is one comment in there after reading through it, which probably applies more than anything to broadband. And what they say about broadband is that they encourage you to make the investment in broadband, and they strongly discourage you from any investments in broadband that duplicate what we already have. So, for example, in our community, a lot of the lake shore on both sides has charter high-speed internet. So what they would discourage you from doing is something that brings only competition to that area and focus on areas of need. So, just as a footnote. Okay. Update on the Heartwood property. This has taken some interesting turns. If you recall, months back, we made a decision to issue a raise order to have the mobile home taken off the property on Town Line and Lawrence, Town Line and Lawrence. And over the course of working through that with the building inspector, our attorney, and everything else, an offer came in to purchase it from the Heartwigs. And they accepted the offer, and the day that it was supposed to close, there was a hiccup, but they managed to clear that hiccup. And so as of Friday, there's a new owner for that property. We did manage to get the raise order into the closing documents, so it became a demand order for the new owner to live up to the 30-day window. And so I talked to the new owner this afternoon, and he is happy to have the property, and he will have it cleared within 30 days. So the problem will go away for us completely, which would be terrific, and we can concentrate on the next mobile home and or house or property as we move down the list. He's already started clearing it. I actually thought he might have been here tonight because he wanted to talk a little bit about what he wanted to do with the property. But the good news is it'll be taken care of, and it'll be taken care of quickly. And he understands the window, fully cooperative. So I think that's good news. Any questions relative to that?
I'm just thinking with the weather, not knowing what the weather would be over the next 30 days. I guess if he asked for a continuance, no?
No.
Oh, okay.
I don't think we'd have a problem with continuing it over 30 days if he's gonna clean it up. If you know, Mother Nature decides to do something.
Yeah, if we have something. But I mean, generally speaking, he understands the timetable, and he wants to clear it as well. So that's the good news. We're not having to push him. He really wants to get it done.
My thanks to him.
Yeah.
Really.
I congratulate
A
him.
very big thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was quite a surprise. I was expecting to have to take you through all of the stuff that happened, but again, as a result of Amy Sullivan's work, we were able to get the raise order into the closing documents, and so that he would have to follow that guideline. So otherwise, we may have had to start the clock again. Okay, next one on the list is the Muscat property, also now known as the Henkin property because she actually owns it. And all I wanted to do there was, I think we talked at last meeting that you may or may not have seen them pulling the gas tanks, the two 1,000-gallon tanks out of the ground in the front of the property. And after they had done that, it was their belief that the property was cleared, and they requested a release letter from the DNR for the property so that they could put the property up for sale and that the new owner wouldn't be encumbered by that. They did the necessary paperwork with the DNR, and the DNR rejected it and said that they would not issue this order until they place a monitoring well in the area of the tanks to ensure that groundwater has not been contaminated. And they've given them a timeline to do that. And in addition to that, they also have a requirement that they perform a trichloroethylene, or TCE, solvent and degreaser test. It's a vapor intrusion test, and that has to be done on the property to make sure that there isn't some other areas in there that would cause a problem. I mention that only because after we cleared it, apparently there are multiple people interested in buying it, 3 different individuals that have been attempting to buy it with the idea of doing some development there, varying degrees of development. The gist of it is, from reading this, is it could be, not sure, but probably 3 to 6 months before this is fully resolved from the DNR's perspective. So I just wanted to make you aware of it in the event that somebody contacts you regarding the property. And I have had calls on that and from what we know. So any questions with that?
I know there's a, they were ordered to, they have a payment plan, I think for like $10,000 over the next 6 months or whatever.
Oh,
I'm assuming, to the state, I'm assuming that's to cover these remediation costs that the state has expended.
There-
And then also on page 13 of the packet, which is under number 2 of their letter, it said, "This letter provides a general overview of timeframes and first steps to take for site investigation and cleanup." Did I miss the timeline somewhere? You had just mentioned over the next couple months, but I
Well, they
didn't
have-
really see dates, so.
Well, it's in here, and for example, on page 3 of 6, under scoping and work plan submittal, it says the law requires you to appropriately scope your site investigation, submit a work plan within 60 days of notification or by March 8th.
Oh, okay, there is a date then.
So
You're right,
there's
I
a
didn't see
couple, I
that.
think there's 2 references to dates in there as
Okay.
I read them. So, oh yeah, then there's a remedial actions report that's due for another 60 days. So I'm gonna guess, not knowing the weather, maybe that impedes this a little bit, I don't know.
Okay, I didn't catch that March 8th of 2022.
And I went through this and to just discuss it with you a little bit because this is going to play into our conversation with respect to the Zabel request for rezoning. So, anything else there? All right. Which brings us to new business and the Zabel rezone. And I'll let Linda start and I'll come back later.
Okay, so on Tuesday, last Tuesday, January 11th, the Plan Commission met to discuss this matter, and we had a very lengthy and healthy discussion on the proposal for this monument business at the, on the 42/57 highway corridor in the vicinity of Grandma Tommy's on the north side of the highway. So we talked about the amount of traffic, outdoor display of monuments, location of the driveway, and the turn lanes there, and safety, and access to the highway, and anticipated future development along that highway corridor. And then we also had some advice from our attorney as to Old Highway Road, which runs along that property, and her recommendation that, that the town would have to grant an easement, a privilege in the street agreement, with the suggested right to revoke that if necessary. Anyway, visibility and offloading of large trucks with monuments. So following all that discussion, and Derek can add if he has anything, it was the recommendation of the planning, all 7 members agreed or were acceptable to the zoning change based on our comprehensive plan, that corridor was where we intended our commercial and business development to happen. The vote was, so we made a motion to the town board, to recommend to the town board support for the zoning change, but we had several conditions. And I know Amy sent the minutes later this afternoon. I haven't had a chance to look at them yet, but it was conditioned upon the DOT giving a recommendation as to access and where the driveway should be. We felt that there were a couple pages missing from the packet, but we since learned that we won't get to see the petition anymore. There was also the condition that if a privilege and street agreement or easement is issued, the town would have the ability to revoke that or rescind it. And also the condition that the town currently has no plans to improve that old highway road from its current condition. So again, the vote was 6-1, and Mr. Zettel did not support it. He felt that he had insufficient information at this time relative to supporting additional commercial development, again, along that corridor and adding a new driveway and just perhaps exacerbating the problem. So we were okay with the zoning change, but we did have concern about the corridor and the traffic and the safety and all that, so. Did I miss anything, Derek?
What would the conditions be for rescinding the easement? What do you,
Our
Great.
attorney sent a nice recap of privilege in the street agreement. We've done privilege in street agreements before, if somebody burrowed under the roadway or cut through the roadway for cable or optic or fiber or whatever, so we've done that before. But she had said that building a driveway, and I believe you have the site map in front of you, which their driveway does cross our old highway road itself, crosses the right-of-way and the roadbed itself. And she said that that would be considered an encroachment on the town road. And if the town was okay with the driveway being built, it could choose to grant this privilege and street agreement and have these conditions, and with the flexibility that we could change our mind on the road, so. But I think the main gist of the, coming out of the meeting was, we need the DOT to advise us how to best handle that highway corridor. I think we had talked about a frontage road several years ago, behind Zahn's and that, so.
so, like, I don't think you answered my question, Linda. What-
Oh, I'm
Like,
sorry.
to rescind the easement, like, if he's got his driveway going across the old highway, if it's already approved, we can go back and take the easement away. Like, what are the conditions that, you know what I mean, what do we say, like, what do you do wrong? Like, what do we have?
You
are there
wouldn't, ideally, you wouldn't revoke a privilege in the street, but it is a revocable agreement. So, let me answer your question in just a minute beforehand. Derek, did you have any other input?
The only thing I noted during the plan meeting was the possibility of the DOT doing road construction in that area
Okay.
of, I think, the year 2023. And I would like to see the DOT project manager come up and have a meeting with the plan commission and possibly the board members here to see what our options are for construction,
Okay.
to see if there's any plan changes that we can do to make that area safer, along with the future growth of that area.
Good. And Betty, I know you want to speak. Let me go through this. If you still want to speak, I'll be happy to let you do so.
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
I would appreciate that opportunity.
not a problem. Let me go through this and it may answer some of your questions, Betty. So going back to this whole corridor, to Derek's comment, your comment on privilege on the street, there is a lot of activity going on between the Mill Supper Club down to the roundabout. We know already what's happening with the Muscat property. We have a sale, pending sale on the Zabel property. The people across, a lot across the street from the Zabel property by the Hummel House, that's the easiest way to put it. down to Gordon Road was sold and is now up for resale, just went up for resale again today. There's some activity there. We have the gentleman,
That's 30 acres or something.
pardon me?
How big is that?
That's a
Yeah.
big chunk.
Yeah.
Then we have the chalet motel people who want to try and attempt to put a campground across the street on the east side by Culver's. And so we have a lot of things that are going on, and not only in our town, but not only with us specifically, but they are contacting the DOT with respect to access. And the DOT, unknown to me, has a committee that looks at these issues as a group, and they reached out to contact me with respect to this corridor because they're concerned about access. And I share that concern. So we need a more coherent policy in terms of how we're gonna access the highway. The DOT wants to meet with us. Eventually, they wanna meet with us and the people that own this property and try and discuss the various options that are out there. One, as Linda mentioned, at one point in time, I wanna say 15 years ago, I think, when Steve or Zons, I can't remember who, came to us and wanted to rezone a piece of property. We looked at doing a frontage road. That was an item for discussion that we never went anywhere with. There wasn't any development that occurred. I think the Zons property had a potential motel, and that developer backed out, and so the property was never, they never went back in to change it. There was a conversation, there is a conversation about extending Forest Road to the west, across the highway, and then an access road from behind the properties where you'd have businesses on the front with an access road coming around back to the front. So there's lots of options that have been kicked around, none that anybody has put a pencil to take a look at if it's viable or not. In these conversations, the DOT came back to the Zables and said they do not support the old highway as a property, as an access. And so this was communicated to them. I talked to the Zables representatives today on 2 different occasions. Shared with them as much background as I could, talked to them about the privilege in the street. The privilege in the street thing is revocable, but in all reality, you probably would have a tough time trying to figure out why you do it, unless you granted them privilege in the street now and then later on came back and said you wanted to put a frontage road in that same area, in which case that could be something that could cause you to change that. I did explain the privilege in the street to the Zables. I asked them, you know, I told them where the Plan Commission was with this and that we don't have an apparent concern about going commercial, but we do have a concern about access. So they know all the details with respect to that. They also understand the DOT's position. So she asked me where to go with this, and I basically, after having a conversation with Mariah Good at the planning department, said the best course of action for the short term undefined, could be 3 months, a month, 6 months, is for them to voluntarily hold their application and not ask for the rezoning at this time until such time as we have an opportunity to meet with the DOT and then with them and come up with some logical access points for this property. There is another pending rezone request in with the county as well for another parcel on that frontage road. So they called me back this afternoon and they agreed to that as long as we keep them abreast and move the ball forward, which I see no reason not to. And so that's why they're not here this evening. So with that, I would obviously recommend that we take no action until we resolve the access, then bring it back. They know where we stand on the rezone itself, so that shouldn't present an issue. And, oh, and to Derek's last comment, I talked to the construction group. They are only going to repave. They may extend the turn lane going north to Forest Road. They say it's at least 2 to 3 years out that we would have to plan to do something. The obvious one I asked about was a right-hand turn only off of Gordon.
Yeah.
That requires property acquisition. They've looked at it. It requires a median to be built to restrict it. That will not happen. They have no plans for roundabouts or anything else, so we'd have to work with them and the county to come up with a plan to deal with those issues
They'll work around.
the next time out. So with that, Betty, I'm sorry, anybody have a question on this stuff?
Well, I just had some comments. The gentleman that was here from the DOT last year, remember he came and asked us if we had any questions and we started doing
That was Jeremy Ashauer, I think, yeah.
He basically told us that once they're set, we had no say in it, you know, once the DOT sets the state
Right.
level. And also he said that there wasn't enough deaths at that intersection in Gordon. I mean, and he literally, and that's what they go off of,
I
you
know,
know.
it's
So
awful.
unfortunately, it sounds terrible, but that was why they haven't really looked more into that or high impact accident.
Terrible.
It's sad to say that.
And it was reiterated in the conversation a couple days ago, same
Yeah.
thing.
The other thing, like, to me, the rezone, if we wanna rezone it, that triangle there, go ahead and rezone it, but doesn't mean that they can do anything with it because of the issues of the DOT, you know what I mean? Like, go ahead, we'll give you the commercial, but
Yeah,
then
it
it's just a
doesn't
piece of,
Doesn't make sense to
Yeah.
do it, you know, at this point until we get it resolved.
yep,
You know, they don't wanna go ahead with the risk that is, as silly as it seems, that we more than 95% unlikely to rezone, to do a privilege in the street and then pull it back.
yeah.
But if you're building a building, you'd like to have access and not have somebody come.
Or have your building built in the back corner and have to put a 1,000-foot driveway in
Right.
someplace else.
So,
Yeah, the issue isn't the rezoning at this point.
right. So Betty, do you have some comments that you'd like to add to this topic?
Well, I have some, yes, thank you. I have some thoughts that I've written down. I did attend the January 11th Plan Commission meeting that addressed the Zabel zoning change request. And I was uncomfortable with the way it was approached on behalf of Zabel because I had presumed that the owner would be present and that there would be a presentation of the Zabel Monument Land Plan. There wasn't. One expects an owner would wish to introduce himself and to provide an overview of the company history, its breadth of services and operations, and would want to confirm the company's willingness to work with the town. To me, the developer's absence suggested this meeting was considered a no big deal, an event. Well, it isn't, because every permit for a corridor business is a significant decision. Though I understand there are 3 bids out for the building, at least that's what was stated at the last meeting, we saw no building design, had no sense for the architecture, the overall aesthetics, the lighting, the landscape. And if you've not had the opportunity, I suggest that you look at the street views for each Zabel monument building. And I will give those addresses to Amy and she can forward that to you. But my second and overriding concern, as is yours, mine is to the traffic. And I was very grateful of the Plan Commission decision and what they're recommending. We need more information, and I should tell you that for ourselves, my husband and I, when we're driving north during any time that there's seasonal traffic, which that season, as we know, is really extending, we go out of our way to drive to a turnaround because we don't want to cross the road going north 2 lanes at Highway BB. Since the future commercial permits will be sought, and I thought it was interesting tonight to learn of all the activity that's pending right now, I would be supportive of a moratorium. Therefore, I would like to ask the town supervisors to request that the County Resource Protection Committee declare a moratorium on this request and future zoning requests. And I ask that both the county and the town meet with the Wisconsin Department of Transportation to discuss the implications of additional commercial growth on Sevastopol's corridor. By doing so, we can look, this gives you the opportunity to not only look at the concern for traffic, but also beautification, so that we have an attractive corridor if we're going to just, develop it for commercial purposes. And we may also want to think about the architecture of the building so that in some way they're united. In any case, my strong feeling is, and I'm glad that you're going to do this, that we should not be considering new access to the corridor until the DOT determines a safe and responsible manner to do so. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Betty. Linda, do you have any comments that you wanted to make relative to her comments, or leave it go?
No, Mrs. Parson was at our meeting Tuesday night, and I know I asked the question about outdoor display, and I believe the response was an indoor showroom, but I believe there was an indoor showroom, or maybe the answer to that was a little unclear. So, but again, like Mrs. Parsons said, our main concern, we didn't object to the change in zoning. That is our commercial corridor, but we definitely had concerns on traffic and safety, and a good point on the architecture of the building, because you are correct. There was a site plan submitted, but there were no architectural drawings submitted for the building itself. So, good point.
Okay. Good, Betty. We'll take your thoughts into consideration as we move forward, as we always do. All right.
Thank you.
Anything else on this topic? Okay. At some point in time, we don't have to do it this minute, we have to figure out who, what, where, and when with the DOT. So, but we'll move on off of this. Maybe we just spend a minute afterwards and pick a date, or a couple of dates. Okay. Tennis court renovation. This is an interesting little project. We've been working on this for a couple, 3 years. The tennis court renovation was to include a new tennis court and a couple of pickleball courts. And the bids that we had gotten a couple of years ago, before we had all the money, were about 1/2 of what the bids were when we started to get some money. So we're still in the fundraising stage, but the thing that's of interest, and I've got to work through all of this in the next week or two, we have an anonymous donor come forward who is willing to match everyone up to a total of $25,000 for the project. So there'll be more information forthcoming, but I thought that was a pretty positive thing. And I hope us get at that, by hook or by crook. So the park committee will hear more about that, and hopefully I'll figure out how to do this. So, and was it you? Because it's anonymous, we don't know.
No, I'm sorry, it wasn't me.
Okay.
I'll just go back to my previous comment about our project report that is due April of 2022. How detailed do we have to be? Okay, so this is an anticipated project, this is an estimated cost, this is start date, completion date. I assume we have to be fairly detailed? No, we
Doesn't
don't?
look that way.
I haven't logged on to the website yet, and I do intend to do that sometime soon. But it does, they give you an overview at first.
Okay.
And then I'm sure the final report will be more detailed.
Because we would want to take our capital improvement plan, all of that into consideration as we plan out our projects, right?
Yeah, there's a lot going on. I didn't touch on the fact that our dugout blew over in that last storm, and so now we're working to try and replace that for the high school before they start their season. There's a project on the table to try and do something with the pavilion, so there's lots of stuff floating out there. We haven't finalized anything. Seems like we take 2 steps forward and 1 back, but, or 1 forward and 2 back, whichever the case might be. So, at any rate, you'll hear more about it as we go further down the road. All right. So, let's move on to the financial reports. You should have the budget versus actual with you in your packet. Excuse me, digging here. So you have the account balances, the budget versus actual, and then you have the transaction list by date. And Amy, do you have any comments with respect to these financial reports?
The town has received its first quarter of the general transportation aids from the state. The January settlement checks were sent out last week. And the first half of taxes are due by the end of the month, January 31st, 2022. And the audit will take place the week of February 7th.
Oh, okay, that's good. I know I signed a bunch of checks that went to the school districts, so. Anyone have any questions regarding the financial reports? If not, a motion to approve and place them on file.
I'll move to approve and place on file the financial reports for December of 2021 with the comment that if you look at the bottom line on budget versus actual, we're
Yes.
really, really close. I don't think we've ever been that much on target, so
Awesome.
good job, Amy,
Thank you.
of keeping us everything in line, so.
Great. Motion by Linda, second by?
I'll second that motion.
Second by Derek. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Okay. Next item is the, everybody's had a chance to sign the vouchers, bills, and claims. Yes?
Yes?
So a motion to approve would be appropriate.
I'll make a motion to approve the vouchers, bills, and claims December 20th, 2021 through January 17th, 2022.
All right. Motion by Mark, second by?
I'll second that.
Second by Jeannie. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, just in case there's somebody out there? No, okay. Oral committee commission reports. So I know that there is a person to my right that would like to talk to you about broadband, so let's start with Jeannie.
I think everyone, well, I'm looking at it, so everyone did receive that the 90-day timeline through FiberNet Dirk County, which came as a result of the DCEDC Finley Engineering study. I attended the meeting at the ADRC on January 6th, where the Finley and CCG they reviewed the summary and then they answered questions from the audience. It was also done by Zoom. It's thorough. There's like I said, this 2-page, I call it action. The most critical part of this is the hiring of a project coordinator, as they suggest. They hope to do that within 90-day timeline. That's all I know about that action, or proposed action. There's also a list, as you can see, what they suggest towns, villages, and city do in a time frame of that sort. Review and the recommendations from the study, create a local FiberNet broadband committee, complete a local community assessment. It says template to be developed. Depending on progress, some communities may be ready to consider applying for grants in March. Communicate with residents on overall broadband vision. And then, of course, when you see the other page of it, it gives a kind of points that go off indicating the group that should be working together, because that's the recommendation, is we don't try to recreate the wheel, but we work together to bring fiber optic broadband to the communities. County government, DCEDC, Door County Medical, future internet service providers, so ISPs, when you hear the ISP, that's what it means, and then school districts as well. So what I've done is I have scheduled a meeting of the Communications and Technology Committee for Friday, January 28th at 2 p.m. At that point, we will have a discussion about next steps. I have invited Kurt Kiefer from the town of Bailey's Harbor. They are, I would say, advanced in what they have developed. They've been meeting as a committee. Kurt, by the way, is the chairman of the ad hoc broadband committee. They've been meeting since August. So they did a survey that went in, I'm not sure if it went in the tax bill. And then in addition to that, the survey is was posted on their website with a link to be able to determine the speed of the internet you have. So if you have a chance to go on Bailey's Harbor's website and look at that, I think there's some great questions. So, and it's very concise. It probably would take somebody like 5 minutes to do it. So I think we'll be talking about that possibility, because there's a number of steps. There's more engineering that's going to be required, meaning that you specifically need to go pole by pole, road by road, pole by pole. So there's a lot of things to be done. Randy Halstead has invited Kurt Kiefer to Randy Halstead is the chairman of the town of Jacksonport. He invited Kurt Kiefer to attend their board meeting to give them an idea of what Bailey's Harbor has done, so their action. That meeting is Tuesday, January 25th at 7 p.m. If anybody wishes to attend, Randy has specifically called me and said, please come whoever wants to attend. So I think it's just a question of, trying to get our ducks in a row and pursue it. Anyone have any comments?
Questions from anyone?
I also attended that meeting, and this is going to be a huge investment, like $130 million to go for the whole county. Rural only was estimated around 80 million to serve 2,800 households and 1,600 miles of fiber, placing on existing poles or redoing poles. And then reading our Wisconsin Towns Association magazine that just came out last week, with PSC offering $100 million in grants. I don't think this is something we want to do piecemeal or fragmented. I'd like to see if this is going to be a whole county effort, that we all work together and be organized so that we're not all on different tangents. So like Jeannie said, I think we have a lot of homework to do before we decide on something and figure out what is in the best interest of not only our residents but countywide as well. And since speeds are so slow during the tourist season, maybe we have the option to reach out to some of, not necessarily our 30% of the room tax, but that 70% that's going for tourism promotion, since tourists do expect high speed and our business owners need high speed to process credit cards and everything else, so that might be an option as well, trying to secure some of those dollars. So I think we have a lot to consider It was an excellent presentation, I thought.
I think the Bailey's Harbor effort is 3 million. I think that's what I read or heard.
5.25 to 6.
Oh, that's more than I thought.
They're
So-
gonna, their intention is to get grants for like 60% and then
Yeah.
borrow 40%. So I think that's maybe where you're getting that.
Oh,
And I believe Washington Island is already up and running.
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
you know.
they're way ahead. And
Mhm.
Liberty Grove, and of course Bailey's Harbor's also decided on their ISP, which will be Insight. And that's who's working with Washington Island. And Liberty Grove will also has chosen Insight as their ISP.
I found it interesting that during the meeting where the consultant said that this could be 3 or 4 different ISPs covering the county, so.
They also made
Which-
a comment, though, that there wouldn't, forget about the big guys. Forget about AT&T, forget about Charter Spectrum expanding. You know, that's not gonna happen. And if you read, there was a good article in the Pulse about what
Yes,
Bailey's
I
Harbor
did see that.
And they did reach out, and of course, Kurt Kiefer was kind enough to share a bunch of information with me, which I forwarded to the committee, and I'd be happy to forward to anybody that wants it. But they were talking about, where am I going with this? So they had, that's where I'm going with it. They had looked at like 8 different possibly ISPs, narrowed it down to like 3 because they decided that local and regional would be the way to go. And then finally their number 1 recommendation was Insight, and that's what I believe that's what their town board approved. And they're also going to use, it looks like their ARPA funds to fund the engineering study, toward the engineering study, so that's a big ticket item. So,
Yeah, they also said it would be a 3 to 4 year build out, plus another 3 to 4 years to get everybody
connection,
on board.
yeah.
So long-term project.
Yes.
And that person they plan on hiring is gonna work for the county. That's my understanding.
This project coordinator? Mhm.
Yeah, it's gonna be working for the county. They are the ones, in the last conversation I had with Steve, before he resigned, said that they were gonna be taking the lead in the county. The county would be taking the lead with this person too, so we'll see what happens. But you're right, I mean, this isn't small potatoes. I
No.
mean, if and when we finally got to the point where we're gonna do something, we have a lot of geography. I mean, think about Bailey's Harbor. I mean, it's a postage stamp compared to us. And the only benefit that we have is that at least on the lake shores and in some parts of the town, we have some charter. But, you know, for the most part, it's the middle of Sevastopol that's not serviced. So it'll be an undertaking for your committee.
Yeah, our coastlines are
Right.
more covered, but,
And I don't know that anybody ever heard what happened to Door County Broadband if the person that came in and purchased that company, if that brings any increase in opportunity through whatever resource there might be,
I
that's
had
something
had a
else.
few conversations with some people that I felt might be in the know, and it's more of a, well,
Hedge
it
fund?
looks like it's being, no, it's looked like it's being sold to another company like Door
Oh.
County Broadband, which is,
Okay.
wireless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
But,
well,
no names have been put forward or that it's a done deal. I haven't specifically heard that.
all right, we'll have to put our people to work on that and find out what's up. Any other committee or commission, anyone
Could I
wishing?
just briefly, also at our plan commission on Tuesday night, we had a short status report on our short-term rentals. And just to let everyone know that we do have our link and phone number, so if you do have a concern or a complaint, a compliance concern or complaint with a short-term rental in your neighborhood, Just go to our town website and go to the short-term rental page, and it's a very easy process. And then also, we had an update that when we started our short-term rental, we had nearly half of our 66 rentals in the town did not have DAT cap license or not state license as required. And that is now down to a mere 19% out of 73 short-term rentals, so progress there. And then also, we had a Door County Coastal Byway meeting this morning, and we got the go-ahead. We're gonna go ahead with a portion of our website upgrade to the tune of about $9,000. And as far as the Door County Tourism Zone Commission, we don't have our meeting until Thursday morning, so I have nothing to report at this time. Other than room tax receipts are way, way up. 2 million over the year 2020, 1.5 million over last year, 2021, and that's only through October. So,
Well, snow will help. People have shown up when there is snow. Okay, thank you, Linda and Jeannie. Anyone
you're
else?
welcome.
Okay, moving on, under license and permits, you have in your packet the Door County inspections report. They are still maintaining a busy rate. And as we move on to correspondence, in your packet is the letter from Death's Door Marine requesting that the county establish truck routes. And there's a suggested list in there. I don't know where this is. I don't know where this goes, quite frankly. I'm gonna guess it would have to fall into the land of the county. But on the other hand, some of these roads are town roads, so I don't know how it gets orchestrated. He obviously has some concerns about traffic, but that's a constant concern during the season with traffic, and I think we all share his concern, whether it be personal or business, working through it. But you have what he sent out and who it all went to. And then you have a copy of the payments, which our clerk treasurer mentioned. And I can separate the page here. Notice of timber cutting and the fire department's report. And that takes us down to, more payment advice, which was also covered. And the last one is the Door County Sheriff's Office report of incident totals. The town of Sevastopol is back in first
Why are we
place
so high?
with 306 events.
Hey.
So it was interesting. The town of Washington has only one, so they're doing exceptionally well. So anyway,
And that
Okay.
one cop made that one call.
yeah, well, it would be tough justifying
He
your
wags his
job,
finger
right?
at me when I drive fast through there, and that's it.
Oh, well. Announcements, I think Amy covered this. Your first half taxes are due by the end of January. The next board meeting is the 21st of February, and the spring elections are on Tuesday, April 5th. The polls will be open from 7 to 8 p.m. If you have an agenda item for next month, please circle back to me. And if not, the next item of business would be a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Derek, second by Mark to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.